Hello and welcome to SJP Advisor Stories. In this series, we interview SJP partners and advisors to share their real-life experiences. I'm your host, G Tit, and if you have any questions that you would like to ask an SJP partner or advisor, please feel free to comment below or reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. Hello and welcome to this episode of SJP Advisor Stories. I'm delighted to be joined by Karin Schulte, who joined the Financial Advisor Academy in June 2023, following a successful international career in logistics and finance. Karin, a very warm welcome.
Great, nice to be here, G.
I'm going to ask you a question that we ask all of our guests, which is, what does financial advice mean to you?
I think financial advice really for me is about helping people to understand where they are at and the steps that they can take to sort of where they can go, and making sure they understand that and agreeing a plan. So it's really giving them peace of mind, focus and direction about their finances, and an understanding. I think that's really important for me.
Wow, I love everybody's answers are similar, but always slightly different. And I love to hear them. So thank you for sharing that. That's brilliant. So tell us a bit about yourself and your background. Before you decided to retrain as a financial advisor, what did your career look like?
So when I left uni, pretty much I went and worked and lived in Asia. And I ended up staying there for 25 years. So I spent time in Japan, in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Australia. But within those areas, I traveled quite a lot as well. And I started off in the logistics field. So I worked for a couple of logistics companies. And then I did an MBA and I went more into finance and worked for an investment bank and in private equity.
Fantastic. Was it exciting living abroad?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I love different cultures and living and working abroad, traveling, meeting different people. So I was lucky because the roles that I had were very international. So I was traveling a lot. And that's just something that really appealed to me. And then, yeah, what I didn't mention before actually was I did quite a lot of charity work as well, particularly when I was in Singapore. So that's something also that I've done quite a lot of.
Oh, wow. So we'll come back to that. So how did you get into your first career in the logistics?
Yeah, I had gone and spent a year teaching English in Japan after university and loved living in Japan. Wanted a bit more of a career. And so at that time, Hong Kong was still, I guess, a British territory. I didn't need a visa because going and living in different Asian countries could be quite tricky at that time, getting different visas. So I thought I'll go there. And I managed to find a kind of apprenticeship role actually in logistics. And I ended up living there and working there for 5 years initially, and doing global account management for very large companies, doing their whole global logistics and positioning. So, and I loved it. It was great because I learned a lot about different industries and traveled a lot. It was fascinating. Really enjoyed it.
Amazing. And then, so what sparked your first transition then? So from logistics into more the finance world, you did your MBA. Tell us about that time of your life.
Yes, I had a lot of friends in finance in Hong Kong, and I was curious to study a bit more about business, understand more about finance, and I thought, okay, I'll do an MBA. So I went off to study in Australia. Actually, I thought I'll take a bit of a break, and so I went to Sydney, and I spent about 4 years there studying, and then that's also when I started to work for the investment bank there, and then I went back to Hong Kong for a further 4 years where I was involved in private equity.
So tell us what originally took you to Sydney when you were studying, because you could have studied, I guess, anywhere in the world. What was it about Sydney that attracted you?
Yeah, so I guess it was an interesting decision process. I thought, I'd worked quite hard and saved up my money in Hong Kong. I thought, well, if I'm going to study an MBA, I'm going to study somewhere where I can also learn to surf. So it was the choice of either Hawaii or Australia, and I opted for Australia.
Wow. So let's go back a step then. Well, first of all, amazing. Thinking of where to study based on the surf is fantastic. But what I really liked, what you said there was the thinking before you made that jump. So saving up some money and making sure you feel financially secure. So how long before you made that jump did you start to think about it?
I think I was quite aware through my grandfather actually about sort of saving for pensions and all that sort of thing. But I also knew that living abroad and living in the countries and working for the companies that I was with, I didn't have any state pension that I was paying into, and there were no sort of fantastic pension plans. So it was very much about saving for myself and making sure that I was putting aside the money that I would need for my future. So it's something that I was always quite aware of, particularly because I didn't feel that I had a safety net, you know, a sort of a state safety net, or even through the companies that I was with. So yeah, I would just always did have a focus on that actually. And yeah.
That's so interesting. So I've always worked in the finance profession, and I guess I've always had great company benefits, and I've always understood what good financial planning means. So I'm fortunate, and not that, that's not everybody. So tell us a bit about your grandfather then. So he was the family figure who was that guidance for you. What was his background?
Yeah, well, he was a self-made man. He'd, you know, worked hard, and he was a good saver. And you know, back in those days, he loved his annuity plans and so forth. And I think that's just something that he passed on. He was also interested in investing, and you know, directly invested himself. So, you know, just growing up, he was quite free with his information, and yeah, I just picked up on that. And I was just also aware of working and living where I was, and, you know, that I needed to sort of put money aside and start saving. And I guess I was conscious that the earlier you start, you know, it doesn't have to be a big amount, but the longer you start, and you know, the better it is.
Amazing.
So
Great
yeah.
guidance. And people are lucky if they have that guidance early in life, aren't they? And if they don't, it's never too late to start. But as you say, it's really, the earlier you start, the more obviously the benefit.
Yeah, and I think just generally in the UK, people don't talk about finances enough. We don't learn about personal finances in school. You know, it's not included in any sort of maths or class or anything. So we don't really have, I feel, a great vocabulary to have these conversations. So, you know, if you have someone in the family who's a bit more interested in it, or friends, that's great. But it is a bit hit and miss. So I find that a lot of when I'm with clients, and you know, I am doing a lot of explaining and sort of educating, which I don't mind doing. It's something that I enjoy, but you know, people really I think need just a bit of help with the basics. So I never assume that people know too much, because I think that can be a bit dangerous. So I always like to give out a lot of information, which is the part, I think at the beginning I said that's what's important for me about financial advice, is helping people really understand where they're at.
So I've got a question for you, because I think a couple of things you said there was super interesting. I couldn't agree more. I think talking about money, to me, growing up, and still feels like now, even though I'm in this profession, with peers, with friends, it's still quite a taboo subject.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
how much is that a
yeah,
UK thing versus other countries that you've experienced?
I think it's a I think it is a UK thing. I mean, I've lived and worked abroad, and I've experienced that different cultures, different countries, people will talk about finances differently. They'll have more open conversations, and it's not about how much they have or they've saved or how much they're earning. It's not about that. It's about sort of what they're doing with their money, or the options, or the tax. And people, I think, you know, from my experience in other countries, are a little bit more open about it. I mean, for me, the best one was always in Hong Kong. You'd jump into the taxi and they'd be talking about what shares they'd been buying and selling that day. And, you know, you wouldn't really have those conversations in the UK. So I think conversation starters, or getting people to start to talk about their future, their finances, is really important. And I think if you do it in a, you know, safe and trusted way, then it's great to get those conversations started.
Absolutely. And that's another thing I'm really passionate about, actually. We do see on social media influencers talking about investing and they're not
Yeah,
qualified and they're not helping
yeah,
people understand the risks they're taking. And that makes me nervous. So yeah, I
yeah,
agree with you. Make sure that you're speaking to somebody who you can trust before actually taking action. So
yeah.
Karin, where are you based now?
So I'm based in between London and Brighton, so
Okay.
in Sussex. So it's great. So I moved back to the UK about 9 years ago and moved back largely for family reasons, for schooling for my son. And during the pandemic, I did become quite involved with financial education and helped with quite a few webinars around that topic. And that's when I sort of started to think, okay, well, I should probably get my qualification as an advisor, because people were starting to ask me lots of questions really that I wasn't then in the right position to answer. And I did actually want to have, I guess, more meaningful conversations with people rather than just general financial education. And so my son, finished school and left home, and I thought, well, that's probably a good time to do it. So 2023 was my year of change and studying really for the exams.
So this is such a nice story. So you've got a real sort of interest. You've always had family members, helping you, teaching you certain things. You've lent into it so much that you're helping people with financial education. Son's left home, a little bit more time, I guess, on your hands. And so how did you go about, you know, finding out what exams you needed to do, what academies were out there, for example? Where
Yeah,
did you start?
yeah. Well, I guess it was interesting because I didn't quite appreciate that you had to be associated with a company in order to go through the process. I sort of thought, oh, I'll go and do my exams, I'll study, and sort of quickly through the research realized that it was a slightly different process than I had sort of thought it might be. And through doing all the Google search, I found actually it was one of the longer interviews that you did with Sam Oakes, and it was great because there was a lot of information, and that's really what I needed at the time. And I think it must have been in January 2023 that I watched it, and so I learned all about the academy and did a bit more Googling, and I saw that there was an SJP sort of open evening, or an invite evening to discuss more about it in London. So I thought, okay, well, I'll go along. And that really, I guess, was my first time that I'd met with people from SJP. And it was a good information evening. And yeah, I wasn't sure what to expect, wasn't sure what the people would be like, and was very pleasantly surprised. So that's really when the ball started to roll for me.
I love it. So you mentioned to me on a pre-call, it was your curiosity. You went there with such an open mind. Let's just see what these people are actually like.
Yeah,
Because it's all very well watching a video online, but actually let's go and see what the office is like. What are the other people like in the business?
yeah.
So I'm really,
Absolutely. Yeah, it was very transparent. It was very straightforward. And yeah, and that's the sort of the conversation started. And they sort of said, would you be happy to carry on a conversation? I said, yeah, absolutely. And that's really, I guess, when the interview process, I guess, commenced.
wow. So you saw a video online. I'm really pleased that that
Yeah,
was of use for you. You came along to an open evening in person. You liked the
yeah,
people that you met. This was all in
yeah,
January. So
yeah.
we'll talk about what happened in between that initial finding and then you joined us in June. Um,
Yes.
so let's talk about what happened between January and June. So people were asking you if you wanted to continue the conversation. Where did that lead?
Yeah, so then I guess I must have I guess it was a series or a process of eight. I wouldn't even call them interviews, but there is a process. And it was really just conversations and making sure, okay, well, let's learn a little bit more about you. You can learn a little bit more about SJP. You can ask any questions you want. And I did know a bit about SJP, and I did have a lot of questions because I wanted to make sure that it was the right sort of fit for me. But equally, they wanted to make sure, that I was the right fit for them, or that's how it felt to me. And I quite like that. I found the whole I found that whole process very professional, quite open. Definitely didn't want to take on somebody who they didn't think was a fit, and vice versa. So it lasted, quite a while, but I wasn't in a rush. And yes, and then you get to sort of a process where they say, okay, if you're happy to move forwards, then you'd have to do the first couple of RO exams, sort of off your own bat. And I thought that was also quite good because it shows if you're serious or not. And I was quite curious to know whether I could do exams. I hadn't sat exams for a long time, apart from helping my son with his GCSEs. So it was quite interesting to know if I would be able to do that. And I did manage to pass them, sort of surprised myself and thought, okay, yeah, no, maybe I can do this.
And I guess
And June was just a good time to start. Sorry.
fantastic. No, that's sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you there. I guess also, as well as can I pass it, am I actually finding it interesting? So it's a good litmus test.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I have got some experience in the finance sector, and I wasn't completely green to the subject matter and to the topic, but I still learnt a lot. And that's what I found really interesting, actually. So, yeah, I did learn a lot still. And I found them, yeah, some of the exams can be quite technical. Yes, it's not always so easy. But I think if you just stick with it and you're practicing, and it's something that I wanted to do. So, I just sort of stuck with it. And SJP give quite a lot of support when you're doing those exams. So there's quite a lot of workshops and learning material that you can use. And I found that all quite good. So, and you can do it in your own time. So yeah, it was good.
Excellent. Now, when we first met, Karin, I remember you saying the words to me in that onboarding process or selection process. I thought it was too good to be true. So I met lots of people who had been through the program. I just wanted to check a few things. So share with us what was it that was really exciting you that you thought, wow, this is too good to be true? And who were the people that you spoke to?
Yeah, so I started off well. The first was the information evening, and that I thought, okay, well, everyone's sort of going to be on their best behavior, and it's all going to be nice, and yeah, okay. And then I was put in touch with I guess the first stage is through the process, and everyone was very professional, and wanting to be quite sort of down to earth and straightforward and transparent. Quite a lot of women, and I wasn't necessarily expecting that as well. I sort of thought, oh, this is good. And I guess that sort of made me feel, well, this is a little bit too good to be true, and yeah, I just thought everyone actually was very pleasant to deal with. It was very professional. I could ask any questions that I wanted. Very happy to get challenged in that way. And so, yeah, then I thought, there was a point where sort of thinking, yeah, is it really going to be like that? Is it really going to stand up that it's this professional going through it? And I have found it to be very professional. And I think there is a lot of support,
Yeah.
and people want you to succeed. Okay. So it's all about success. I want to succeed, but also I know that everyone is there wanting me to succeed, and they're going to help me. So that feels very, very uplifting. It gives a lot of confidence, and that really helped make my choice to go with the academy.
That's so great to hear. And it's nice to hear that as an employee, because we definitely have that as a internal culture. We want you to be successful, and we're there to support the partnership to be successful. And that's from day one. So part of the onboarding process is all about exploring, as you said, is this right for you? Now, people have two options when they come through our academy. They have the option to either start their own business, as you
Yeah.
have, or join one of our existing SJP practices as a financial advisor. Now, there'll be pros and cons of both of those routes.
Yeah.
And I guess the process that you went through, lots of different meetings, lots of different discussions, a bit of homework, is
Yeah.
aimed and guided to help you make the most informed decision about those two routes. So do you want to talk us through why you did choose to start your own business?
Yes, I think part of the attraction for me was that I could start my own business, but I wasn't clear on that when I started talking to SJP that that was the path that I was going to go down. So again, I sort of kept an open mind. I was interested to explore both pathways, and it was quite good because I spoke to a couple of people that were, had set up their own businesses, and some that had gone in as advisors, and then also some people within the management of SJP who've taken people through and had that experience and sort of said, well, Karin, based on what you're telling us, we probably think that might suit you better going the partnership route. And that is what I felt would suit me better, I guess, with my stage in life and with the experience that I've had. It didn't seem as daunting to me to do that as it may to other people. And it just sort of seemed to be the right fit. But it took, I think I wasn't sure at the beginning. And I think from SJP's side, there was also quite a process of, is this the right way for her to go? Do we think that that's going to be the right pathway for her? And yeah, I think so far so good, and I'm quite happy with the choice that I made.
Fantastic. So it's all about giving you confidence, giving you evidence, if you like, doing some homework. So thinking about who your network are. Are you comfortable thinking about talking to people, these people that you already know about finances? And luckily for you, you already had people asking you lots of questions because you're in.
Yeah, I mean, I think you do have to do sort of like a little mini business plan. You do have to do some work for this, but that's the whole point, because you're setting up a business. You want to make sure that you've got what it takes to make this business get up off the ground. And the network and the networking is very important. And to be able to feel confident enough to go out and do that if you don't have as big a network. So I think that's key, because I want my business to be successful. So I want, and if there's a lot of people with a lot of experience at SJP about what it takes to be a successful advisor or a successful partner. So I want to benefit from that knowledge as well. So that's what's key. There is a lot of that advice and information available.
I couldn't agree more. So if you think about the ecosystem or the community within SJP, there are over 4,600 people giving financial advice within the partnership, 2,600 plus business owners. So there's so many people for you to have a conversation with, share best practice with, understand certain types of client scenario. Even we've got the technical support. So yeah, I think that's a really, really important thing. So let's think about once you joined. So you started the program in June last year.
Yeah.
And the way the program works is there's some exams, first of all, sort of a 3-month term, if you like, term one, then we moved into skills. So you were sort of term one across the summer, then moved into skills in the autumn into the winter.
Yes.
So you mentioned you hadn't done exams for a long time. How did you find them?
Yeah, I mean, the first one was, I mean, it was quite nerve-wracking, and I didn't take the exams at home. I went to an exam center, because I just thought that would be a bit more straightforward, and I had one that wasn't too far away, so that was good. And yeah, so I passed the first one. I thought, oh, interesting. Let's see if I pass the next one. So yeah, managed to pass the next one. I thought, oh, okay. And then the third one came up, and I think that was RO3, which was the tax one, which was like, oh golly, quite a tough one. And managed to pass that. And I sort of thought, okay, no, but each time it's, they're big, chunky exams. You have to put the work in. But yeah, no, did that in the 3-month term. So managed to get all my ROs out the way. Right. And then start it was sort of late September for term 2. And term 1 and term 2 are just completely different.
So on the exams, really quickly, we have an 85% first time exam pass rate versus an industry 66%. So in your cohort, tell us about your cohort. How many people are in your cohort, and were most people passing the exams, I guess is my question.
Yeah, so I had a cohort, we were about 20 people. So I think that was a sort of considered a largish cohort. very mixed group, very diverse, all ages, all industry backgrounds. And that made it really interesting. And you know, we formed a good group. And through term one, whilst we weren't together because you study those exams individually, we still had a group chat going and sort of helping out with different questions and this and that. And then we got to meet each other really for the first time in term two. And you have a couple of away sessions throughout term two. And yeah, that was great. I think, you know, there is a lot of support from SJP with the study materials. And yeah, I would say the majority of people were passing first time. If you didn't pass first time, then they definitely were passing second time. So didn't seem to be such a big issue, but you have to work for those exams. They weren't a walk in the park.
Absolutely. I think the terminology is they're equivalent to year one of university in terms of difficulty level. But absolutely you want to pass it the first time because there's a lot of work
Yeah.
involved. You don't want to be sitting it the second time. So yeah, putting that work in definitely makes a lot of sense. So congratulations on getting through those first time.
Thank
So we
you.
moved then into term two. So term two is all about understanding the softer skills of doing the job and the proposition
Yeah.
you have to advise clients with. So you mentioned you had some in-person training. How did you find term two? It's last about 2 to 3 months. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So mine actually it started at late September, and because of the way Christmas fell and so forth, it didn't finish actually till the end of the first week in January. So it's about 12 weeks, I think it was. Very different, very good, very hands-on, very practical, really just doing client practice sessions with your colleagues and with the trainers. And you know, you sort of get thrown into it right away, which is I don't mind that. I quite like that, and I quite like learning by doing. So, and at the end of the day, you just want to build up as much practice as you can, so that when you are dealing with clients for real, that you've just gained more confidence. So I thought it was a good process. There's a lot of online content, but I took it very much as a 9 to 5. So you know, for me, I took it as a full-time job in that sense, and I didn't find the workload too heavy. If I approached it in that way, then I was able to do all the study and everything within that time frame. So, you know, I still felt I had a good work-life balance, but you have to keep up with it all.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, I think if you let things slip, then that's not good, because you're forever playing catch up. So as long as you're staying on top of it, it's actually, I think, you know, quite fine.
Okay.
And yeah.
That's good. And what about the Academy Development Manager? So you've been out client facing since January 2024. We're filming this early May. So for 4 months, you've been
Yeah.
client facing.
Yeah. Early days.
Yeah, early days. But how was the first meeting? You've done all this practice, you've done all these role plays. How did you find that initial meeting that you had, and who was it with?
Okay, so actually, I always promised myself that the first client would be me, because I've got to put my money where my mouth is. So that is what I did. So that was, I guess, not a true client meeting, but then it was family and friends and people that had actually approached me before through the financial education, who wanted to have those more meaningful conversations. So I had, already, I guess, a group of individuals who wanted to meet with me. So I was quite lucky. I didn't really have to go out searching too hard to find my initial groups. But it takes time, and you're learning then all the systems in those first few months, and you know, how to process the business and Salesforce and my practice, and you know, all of that. So I've got an ADM and I've got an ASM, and they are both fantastic. They're really sort of, I call them Team Karin. You know, they're there answering any questions that I want, giving me any guidance, any information, and you know, the support is really there. So it's been really good, actually. A lot of work, a lot again to take on board, a lot to learn still, with all the systems, but it's been fine.
Okay, so let's go through the two roles you mentioned there. So some acronyms. We do love an acronym at SJP, don't we? We've got our own internal
We
language
love
almost.
them. Yeah,
Oh, so ADM is an Academy Development Manager. Now, that
that's
person is
right.
somebody who is CF30, FCA registered, and their role is to help you with your role play and be ready, be signed off as a competent advisor. So that's an industry terminology.
Yep,
And you
yep,
need to have been observed X number of times with clients in order to
yep,
reach that status. Um,
yep,
and then your ASM is an academy support manager. And
yep,
I believe those people are there very much to help you on the systems. And like you say, when you're
yes,
processing business. So
yes,
two different people, two distinct roles, but very much
yep.
integral to the phase that you're in right now.
Very much. And I mean, they are fantastic, and available at any time. But then I've also been quite conscious that they're there and my support, which is great. But there is a lot of support in SJP, and there's a lot of places where you can go and get information. So for me, it's also about learning and reaching out, not just to those two individuals, but just generally. If I've got questions where I can go, you've got TechLink, you've got the mezzanine service, you've got advice guidance service. So there are many hotlines that you can call or people that you can email that will help. And I found that all really good as well.
Amazing. So the clients you have sat down with, you mentioned to me in our sort of pre-call some of the tools that you have access to that you've been learning as well through going through the academy.
Yeah.
One of them is it's called cash flow modeling, but that probably doesn't mean too much to the average person. So tell us a bit about how that tool really helps your clients.
Yeah. So I love tech and I love using tech, to the benefit of helping people understand, about finances. And I guess sort of spreadsheets and numbers can seem a bit daunting to a lot of people. And I'm quite a visual individual. And I came, part of the process is, you can do this cash flow modeling. And I knew right from the beginning when I was appointed that I wanted to use this software. So I learned that straight away and signed up for that. And basically, it's a visual way of seeing how, how long your money will last or how your money might grow or when your pension starts and if you have a different expenditure. And it's just a fantastic tool to help to explain to clients and then really sort of imprint in their mind, how their money, can work for them and how much assets will grow and what percentage is in property and it's just an incredible tool. So clients love it. I love it. There's a couple of different software packages that you can use, and I use a particular one, and I find it great.
That's amazing because I think often I'm speaking from my own personal perspective. I am a woman. I think growing up with my friends and my peers, women can put their head in the sand a little bit with finances. Not just women, actually. Generally, we were saying in general, people don't really talk about their finances in the UK. And I feel that might be because it does feel a bit invisible. So, oh, I'm saving for X or Y.
Yeah.
I don't really know what that means. So I feel like a visual aid is just, do you find it makes people fully invested in their plan, more invested in their plan?
Yeah, I think because you can do scenario analysis as well. You can say, okay, if you decided to save a little bit extra, it might have this effect. Or if you sold your house and downsized or upsized, this would be the effect.
Yeah.
Or you can even model things like market crashes or, and say, okay, well, how that is that going to affect your position? And I think that really, and it's done in such a visual way that it is very digestible.
Mm.
And so you sort of think, okay, you can see that. And I mean, it would be great to show people maybe in another session or something, just to give people an idea of what this looks like, because it really does make it digestible for clients. And yeah, it really adds value.
Amazing. And are you finding you're attracting a certain type of client, or do you want to work with a certain type of client? What's your strategy?
Yeah, I mean, my business model really is probably, well, it is around people more of my age and my stage of life. So it's people who are thinking about the next phase, their pension planning. Well, hopefully people have thought about pension planning from before, but really getting it into a sort of more active stage with that. There's inheritance and inheritance planning, but also people receiving lump sums. So that's the kind of client that I'm working with more. But I'm open to working with anyone. I'm not going to sort of completely cut myself off, but I do financial education webinars, and that's my way of sort of really doing conversation starters. And I really focus on maybe smaller groups of between 6 to 8 people. I do this for all age groups. Sometimes family groups are interested to do it. So where the parents want sort of young adult children to learn more about their finances. And it's just a way for me to say, okay, this is a conversation about financial advice and some of the key things that, are worth thinking about, hopefully to get those conversations started. And then, might not be the right type of clients for me. That's absolutely fine. If I feel that, they've come away and learned something and in the future they use it, that's great.
That's brilliant. And I guess you've got peers from your cohort and around SJP, you can guide them in the direction where somebody can help them.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, if I feel that it's not the right type of client for me, I've definitely through my peer group, got others who, might find them quite interesting as clients.
I love that you've already built that into your model, literally from the beginning, that giving back, helping people, you already had that experience giving financial education, but I love that you've built that into your business from the beginning. So let's think about transferable skills. Obviously, you came with some financial experience, but what about other skills from your previous careers? Now you're doing the job. What things do you feel are benefiting you from your previous careers?
I guess I did have quite a strong client focus in some of my roles. So, and I like people. I am a people person, so I like meeting people, learning about people. So that's something I feel very comfortable with. And, in the roles that I had before, that was important. But I guess a lot of it is also trust, particularly for the charity work that I did, because a lot of that was around fundraising. So people giving you money and entrusting that it was going to be utilized in the right way. And in private equity work as well, investing individuals and money into companies that, they're obviously hoping are going to grow and make them a return. So that for me is a really transferable skill. So, it's the trust, the dealing with people, the transparency, and I think also making people feel comfortable to be able to ask any questions. So, there is, I think, sometimes a lack of financial understanding. And if people feel confident enough to ask me anything, then I think, okay, well, that's great because then I've got a level of trust.
That's absolutely brilliant. Creating that safe space for somebody to where no questions are silly
Yeah.
ultimately. Yeah, you can ask me anything. I think that's amazing. And what do you like most about your new job?
Well, I think the fact that I've set up my own company, my own business, so that I can do it in my way, in my time. I'm quite a motivated individual, but it feels nice that I'm doing it in my way, in my own time, but with the support of SJP behind me. And that was what was really important to me for choosing the academy as well. It wasn't just I guess I'm at a stage in my life where I didn't want to sort of mess around. I want to get on with it. I wanted to go to what I perceived was the best in the market. And I think the SJP Academy is the best in the market for becoming a financial advisor. I liked the fast pace of it as well. And so I really enjoyed that and the partnership structure. So that really suits me, and I'm very happy so far with how everything is panning out.
I'm so pleased to hear that. And tell us a bit about your plans for the future.
Well, I think I'm going to do a bit of a strategic review in the next couple of months. So, sort of first 6 months, just to to get going with everything, make sure that I'm really understanding the systems, the processes. There is a lot to learn. And I mean, it's going to take me probably longer than 6 months, but after that, I'm going to be reviewing how things have gone and constantly be open to, okay, am I doing it the right way? Is this the right process? Could I be doing it faster? And I know that there's various growth options as well, which is something that I like with SJP. So I'll be looking at those different opportunities. I can talk to my ADM and others within SJP if I want to have some sort of chats and some feedback about how things are going. And that's, it's quite exciting. And so I know that sort of there's going to be another phase. I'm not quite sure how that's going to go, but I'm looking forward to it.
I love that. So it feels like very sort of, I guess phase is the right word. You've gone through the exam phase, you've gone through the skills phase, you're in the phase of becoming client facing, still so much to learn,
Yeah.
but the future's looking bright. So should we talk through what some of those growth options might be for you? What do you see them as?
Yeah, well, I guess, at the moment I'm just doing sort of organic growth through my networks and, that could be enough. Actually, I might, as long as I'm getting the recurring and referrals, that's really important. But obviously there's the other option of doing client sharing agreements, or, you can also do some purchasing agreements. So there also other options that I know that I can pursue if I wish to. And there's many ways around doing that as well. So, and that's actually, I find that quite nice, knowing that there are those options, and it's then down to me and how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking about and what might be a good fit or not. And I think that's what's nice about SJP, is that there are lots of options, and depending on how you want to grow your business and who you want to grow your business with, and if you want to focus in a certain direction, there are those opportunities out there.
That's great to hear. Karin, thank you so much for sharing your experience so far with SJP and your background. It's been fascinating, super interesting. Do you still surf?
I do. I mean, I'm not very good, but ironically, one of my most favorite places to surf is in the UK. So there you go.
Very cold water, I imagine.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey. If people do want to look you up and ask you any questions, how can they find you?
Well, obviously through the SJP email, they can contact me, or through LinkedIn, and happy to answer any questions. Get in touch.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us.
No problem. Take care.